does not sleep. Coach Wiss has not slept since summer of 2024. And once a month, he'll put a squirt of Mio in his water.
On today's episode of the Left Hash Call, we have Alex Wood. Alex Wood is the defensive backs coach at the University of Wisconsin-River Falls. He has coached arguably one of the best DB rooms in Division III the past 4 seasons with players like Andrew Schumacher, Aaron Borgerding, Michael Brown, and Dylan Brown. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Alex Wood.
Thank you for having me, Seth.
How you doing today, man?
Good. I'm excited to do this. It's also my first time ever doing a podcast.
Oh, really? Well, great.
You're the first person to invite me on one.
Well, there we go.
I've listened to them for about 10 years now, so I have my fair share of judgments. I've passed along podcast guests, but now it's my turn to be on the hot seat.
Well, deservingly so. You know, I wanted to have you on the show, of course. You know, we have coached together. You've coached me as a player. And I think you approach coaching. I think you approach football. I think you approach life in a really unique way. And I think you'll have a lot of insight and a lot of unique topics that we're going to get through. But first of all, before we get into some of that, I just kind of want to talk about, you know, your journey from, you know, high school to River Falls. What did that process look like? Why did you end up going to River Falls as a player?
I came to River Falls to play football, and that's an experience I believe a lot of our guys have. When I was in high school, I loved football. I did not have the foresight at the time to look ahead and say, this is what I want to do and this is how I want to do it. I was just kind of living day by day. I wasn't even certain at the time I wanted to play college football, but when the time came where I was kind of at that path where I was going to part ways with football, I wasn't ready. And so that's kind of a theme that's came up again once I got into coaching. But at the time, I had reached out to some of the WIAC schools. I was living in Middleton, Wisconsin, so southern Wisconsin. And as most kids are, I was familiar with the schools in that region. However, I had a teammate that was committed to come here and play. And so it was probably 10 p.m. on a Wednesday night, I remember. I was just about asleep. I got a phone call from Coach Walker and Coach Ebner at the time, and they were super excited. They invited me up to campus, and so I came up on a visit, and while I didn't necessarily, like I said, have the foresight or maturity at the time to dive into everything myself, I had enough to listen to my mom, and after our visit, she's like, that's the place for you. And it was all about the family and the culture here.
I think whenever you find what college you want to go to or where you want to play, I think there's just a moment where it clicks. And for me, it was the exact same way. I just remember stepping into that office the very first time and being like, yep, this is where I should be.
Yeah. And the office you got to step into is much nicer than the one I did at the time.
Yeah, you guys were over in, you guys were still in the basement, right?
Yeah.
I never got to experience that, unfortunately. What was then playing, like your first 3 years at River Falls, you know, you ended up being a record-setting defensive back over there. What was, you know, your playing experience like? And how do you think your playing experience compares to what some of the guys are kind of experiencing now?
You know, in some senses, I would say nothing's changed. In other senses, I would say everything has changed. The biggest constant, obviously, is going to be our head coach, Matt Walker. He is, like I said, who recruited me here. So I was fortunate enough to play for him for 4 years, and I now coached with him for that same amount of time. And what I think is special is that the Coach Walker you get on your first recruiting visit is the same Coach Walker you get if you're 0-10, if it's February, or if you just won a national championship. Like, he loves you, he cares about you, and all of the U's on the team, he cares about everyone. And he has the most unique way about going about it. And at times, I truly believe he's the only one that can pull off the approach he has. But I think that culture of family, it's truly the identity and the foundation of the program. And so, in the sense where nothing's changed, that's what it still is. Our guys still get that great opportunity to play for a staff that care about them. I think what's different is that some of the finer details of culture have grown and improved thanks to great leadership from various senior classes throughout the year. We've kind of just built on what each previous class has left. It's exciting then because you can see with the wins and losses kind of that foundation grow. And then, like I said, with the wins and losses, you can kind of see that outcome.
Yeah, I mean, every time I hear someone explain their story of getting recruited by Walks, I think the exact like it's a very similar story where he's just such a genuine human. And I'll tell the one of the kind of the funniest full circle moments with getting recruited by Walks. I remember hopping into his truck with my parents, and he he said, "Hey, buddy, sorry, I usually have my wife's Suburban for recruiting tours." And I was like, "Oh, no problem." Like, it's kind of like a work truck that he has, and so we go around. We're going to the UC, and we're going around campus, and then 2 years later, I'm on staff, and I'm like, "Wax, I don't think I've ever seen you like ever drive that Suburban with recruits." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I tell that to everybody. It always works too." I was like, "Yeah, I guess it did." Did you
Sure.
always know coaching was going to be in your future? Did you when you were kind of wrapping up being a player, was it kind of already known that you were going to do that, or what was that process like?
I did grow up a bit through college, but if you pick up that story at the end of high school and just move it to the end of college, there are still some truths. I found myself as college went on motivated to learn how I learn best and to grow as an individual. And so as I got closer to the end of college, I kind of ramped it up. With that being said, I didn't really know. And as far as coaching specifically, I'd go as far as saying I didn't really have any plans to do it. What really happened was I graduated with a business degree, and as part of the requirements to do that, we all get a internship somewhere, somehow. And that was kind of a process where I was like, you know what, I'm ready to do this. Whatever being an adult is, like, I'm going to go try it. And so I had an internship that I was proud of. I worked hard to get, and I was really hoping that I'd be able to stay there full time. Well, time played out. We ran into COVID, ran into hiring freezes, and that opportunity kind of came and went. And as we all did, I was sitting with nothing to do, and that doesn't usually go over well for me. I like to be doing things. And so once I was able to, I reached out to Coach Walker and asked to volunteer. And that kind of path I sat at the end of high school, I didn't really sit at it at the end of college. Obviously, I was devastated that I was done with football, but I was in the right headspace to move forward. But then once I volunteered, I fell back in love with everything that football is, and the rest is really history. I did good enough that spring where he invited me back. I was fortunate enough there was a position open as well, which, a lot of gratitude for Coach Walker and Coach Wiss and the rest of the staff because I've loved every second of it since.
Yeah. One thing that I didn't really get when I was starting coaching and now out of coaching, I didn't understand what the purpose of being an assistant coach really was because I always saw, where I wanted to be, and I didn't sometimes understand what I was supposed to be doing while I was where I was. And I remember reaching out to you one time, and that's where I'm going with this next point is I remember you told me that your job as the defensive backs coach at River Falls, Wisconsin, is to bring the defensive coordinator's vision to life. How do you have the maturity to approach that point way of thinking? And then at the end of the day, how do you go about making that happen?
Well, if I am one thing, I'm competitive and I want to win. And if that means like checking your ego and taking a second to truly identify what your role is, I believe it can help you win. Okay. And so I don't know where that thought personally came from or how it came about, but I'm so happy I had it because there's a lot of pride to take in helping someone else's vision become a reality. And once I kind of framed my approach through that lens, I was able to really take a step forward in my own career, and it gave me purpose or identity. I don't, like I said, to specifically answer your question where it came from, I don't know, but I'm happy it did. And like I touched on then, it can make things more exciting because doing something alone is gratifying, but accomplishing something with somebody else is way more gratifying. And so when you're able to be like, okay, me in our case, my case, Wiss, like we're on this mission together. He's just as competitive as I am. We want to be the best at what we do. But if we have two constant voices saying different things or arguing over different points, like it's just not going to get either of us to where we want to be. And we both want to be in the same spot. And so there's a natural hierarchy. And I think if you kind of visit that, it answers the question a little bit in itself. Like he's above me in the hierarchy, so to speak. But then when you're able to approach it that way, it kind of takes away from that. It doesn't feel like that. You can really collaborate and give yourself the best opportunity to succeed.
You hear coaches say, just shut up and listen. But I think if you take the approach of take what the defensive coordinator, the offensive coordinator, the head coach is wanting and try to bring that to life and make it even better, that's so much more growthful than just, hey, man, shut up and listen. It's true at the end of the day in order to climb that ladder that you're trying to. But for yourself, I think that's so much more important.
Real quick, like some practical applications, right? Because Wiss and I have a very unique experience together where our first year coaching together was his first year as a defensive coach after 20 plus years, and it was my first year as a coach. And so as we kind of got into this, we were both just learning together. And so sometimes it would be as simple as him being like, hey, I want this taken away. And I'm thinking to myself, we don't have the tools to do that. And so what it creates then, again, when you approach it through that lens, is an opportunity to go learn something. And if you're going to present it to a superior as something that you think you should do, you better know it as well as you can. And so it creates that opportunity to truly learn something new. In worst case scenario, you present it and they're like, no, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. Well, you just learned something new that one day you'll have in your pocket to apply. So again, I think it helps just enjoy life more when you try to approach things collaboratively.
Damn, that's some wisdom right there. That's got me like fired up. But with that also comes with coaching players that have personalities. Every single player that you coach has a different background, has a different story. And one of those guys is Michael Brown, who has a very outside the box personality, just an ultimate competitor, a shit talker, I will say. But how do you go about coaching guys like that have a lot of personality, and then the differences between him and some of the other guys?
Sure. It's a good question. And it's one that, again, I kind of got thrown into, and I kind of just had to dig inside and be like, what do you believe? And what I came up with is that there's always value in diversity.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, diversity is personality, right? And so, on top of that, I never saw my job as taking something away from an athlete that makes them who they are. And, some of that was reflection on things I've learned or my own experiences. But, with that in mind, there's a principle that says, like, no one person can be more important than the team. And so you kind of have this spectrum where it's like you want the individual to be themselves, but you also need to have them play and do that within the constraints of a team, as so they're not taking away from the benefit of the team. And so the way I went about approaching that is like, how can we channel your passion to maximize your individual performance in hopes of helping the team win, giving ourselves that best opportunity? And so that's kind of how I approach it, because if you have five, in my case, defensive backs, five guys that are all passionate dogs, like, it's not going to work. If you have five guys that are timid and, tuck their tail, it's not going to work either. If you have five alphas, they're all going to butt heads. So you got to find a way to maximize what each person does from this standpoint the best, and give them a little platform within the room to kind of explain their viewpoint to the rest of the room.
You mentioned the five, because it's obviously the type of defense you guys run. How do you think those guys have all played together? Because almost all of them, at least four of them, have played at least 3 straight years together.
Mm-hmm.
How have you seen, guys like Aaron, guys like Shuey, guys like Dylan and Michael? How have you seen them grown together over the course of 4 years for those guys? And ultimately, what do you think made this group so special?
If I knew the exact answer, I'd be, you know, it's hard to say exactly what makes them special. I
Mm-hmm.
do believe that every college football player has like a general journey where, if you're going home in the summer, you're naturally gonna be at kind of step one. And then once you're here for your first off season, and you'll probably be working landscaping or something with your teammates, and then you move in with a group of them, and all of a sudden now you start having other younger teammates at your place. There's this natural progression where your buy-in and your passion, it either grows and is like, there's the old adage, like, you shit or get off the pot. Like, you fully buy in and you're like, let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
For these guys, they had that same exact journey. And what made them so special is just that they all loved football and they loved each other. And I think, especially at our level, it's one of the most important things for me when I talk with recruits, to try to gauge if they truly love football. Because I do, and the guys I get to work with do, and the guys that have the most success within our program and with me love the game. And it just looks like, honestly, being like younger, like, I'm on Instagram a lot, and it looks like them sending me reels of Darius Slay seeing one eliminate fly out of his quarter to rob the dig of number 2 breaking away from him, and being like, what on earth is this? And like, getting that DM from them. It, like, it's small things like that. And then we'll have group chats of the same thing. But I think it's just, again, like you said, to start on top of that, we were all fortunate enough to really get to jump into this experience together. And there was something special about that, where my first year coaching was their first year playing, and we kind of grew together. And there's something, like I just said, special. Um, but yeah, if I knew exactly what it was, I'd be excited. I could write a book
And
and
you
sell it.
put it in a bottle and try to manufacture that, which you kind of have over there, to be honest. Just yesterday, all those guys, competing in various combines,
Mm-hmm.
in the state of Wisconsin, and like Dylan Brown. Like, the thing about Dylan that I always think is so crazy, making graphics to that kid over the years, and just yesterday, it's funny because like I don't see a lot of pictures of him, and you know why that is? Because the ball is never his direction. He might not have very many picks, but I over the years people don't want to test him, and I get it. And I remember my first day, that cold ass practice in the spring of 2022 or whatever it was. I was like, is that kid 7 feet tall? Or I was like, what? I was like, goodness sakes. It's like, I don't want to throw over there. That's for sure. And that's a kid that deserves like that opportunity to go compete, at the Badgers Pro Day for sure.
I
But
think with all of them kind of tying the two questions together, the thing that needs to be said, because it's easy to get caught up in how talented they are as individuals and how well they played together. Nobody put in more work than Dylan Brown, than Michael Brown, than Aaron did, than Shuey did. Nobody outworked those guys. And again, is that journey I explained, like as they got older, they started putting that work in together. And now everybody works out in the weight room. And
mhm.
your best players are going to be your hardest workers in the weight room. And they did that, as does our whole team. We're so spoiled as coaches with a culture that it is just what you do and how you do it. But those guys would go way over and way above any expectations. Like Aaron would bring over the whole group. They live together, but they would watch film and go through the entire game plan while watching live streams. Mike works with Coach KB, who is a performance trainer, and he encouraged guys to come join him. And so now we have these guys watching film together. We have them doing, performance training together. And I just think what they did was they went above and beyond. And yes, to your point, because of what I just said, like nobody in my eyes deserves the opportunities those guys got more because of the work they put in. And I'll miss them, but it has been kind of fun watching them play in all-star games and, get their pro day opportunities and take these next steps. I've became more of a dad than a
Yeah.
coach, whereas like, something would go bad and I'd be like, all right, time to tighten those boots up. We got to keep moving, guys. And now it's like I watch them and something goes bad. I'm like, what are we doing? You know,
Yeah.
like you can't.
The first summer I was a player there, and I remember Mike being there and Dylan being there and Aaron being there, and you would have thought, those guys were sophomores at the time. You would have thought they were fifth year seniors just by the
Mm-hmm.
way that they carried themselves, by the way that they worked. Like they didn't like I don't know how to explain it. Like you said, it's hard to, you know, understand why or how to make that happen again. But those guys have just a mindset that I'm going to outwork you and I'm going to do everything it takes to outwork you. And it doesn't matter what gets in my way. I'm going to, beat down the door to get to it. We both played and coached for the same head coach. And, you know, I think he's just one of the most unique and special human beings that I've been around. When I was up there, he was like my dad away from home, and he is to so many people. What do you think overall makes him a good leader of men and then also just such a good coach?
Well, he would be the first to tell you like what he does best is leading, right? And he has um taken on that role, whereas he gives us as coaches the freedom, tells us we're our own head coaches of our position room,
Mm-hmm.
and then he really lets us take it from there. He takes, like you said, his role as a leader of men, and that's his thing, and he's so good at it. Um, you know, I've watched and I've observed, and again, I said it before, but he does so many things so well. And I think the way he approaches his leadership style in leading the team, it's really unique to him and his way of doing it. Obviously, all the things that make a great leader, work ethic and, passion and desire, like he does those things. He cares about this program more than anybody. He outworks all of us. You know, he has all of the skills that great leaders do, but then what makes him special is he is him.
He
And
is him.
yeah, that's the
He
best way to put it.
totally is. Do you have a favorite story or one that just really shows who he is?
There's one that comes to mind. It's nothing extraordinary, but it's super brief and it just like encapsulates him. And can I swear on your
Of
podcast?
course.
Okay. Uh, so we started staff hoops, and he does. It's awesome because obviously, as a coach, his job's to create buy-in. But then naturally, outside of football itself, he works to create buy-in, and it highlights his, again, his himself being himself. And so we started staff hoops, and he's trying to get different, coaches and peers within our department to join. And I remember one day he came in and he asked somebody if they were going to join staff hoops tomorrow. He's like, "Are you going to play with us tomorrow?" And they had this wishy-washy answer. They're like, maybe, I don't. He's like, "Come on, man. It's for the workout, you fuck face." And again, like, it, nobody can do it service, but when you hear him say that, it is the funniest thing ever because it's like an old lady calling you sweetheart, but his way. And it's funny because then he texted me and I responded back with those exact words because he just said it the day before.
Yeah.
And I felt terrible.
That sounds so on par with Coach Walker. Your mindset behind coaching, we joke about it at times, when I was on staff there, but this get to mentality and this get to mindset, how do you approach that? Where did that come from? I would like it if you would explain, your mindset and approach to day-to-day activity.
So it was actually from a book I was reading. And where I think sometimes people struggle because I don't do the best job at explaining it. Like you said, it is kind of just a joke, so to speak, but Coach Walker has this thing he says where if the players are making fun of it, you have them,
Yup.
right? And it's the same kind of approach. It starts on a foundation, however, that you're in charge of your own damn attitude. Accountability, right? And it's one of those things where it takes a lot of self-reflection. You need to let go of your ego, and you need to be able to say, the only thing that I'm in charge of, the only thing I have control over is myself. And it's a blessing and a curse because you have the decision to decide that you get to do something or you have to do something. It's
Mm-hmm.
small verbiage that makes a huge difference once you truly are able to at least attempt to embody it. It's not easy. But the idea is that I have to go to class. Well, if you have to go to class, what are you going to do? You're going to sit in the back row. You're going to have your phone under the table in between your legs with your left AirPod in watching TikToks. You're going to be there because you have to. But if you decide, hey, what an opportunity it is to be able to learn. There are people all across this world that do not get the opportunity to learn. And then there's people that choose not to. But all of a sudden, if you're like, man, how fortunate am I to get this opportunity where I get to go to class? All of a sudden, now what are you going to do? You're going to be in the first damn row. You're going to be engaged. You're going to be taking notes. And it's like, what's better for you as an individual? To be engaged in the moment, learning whatever it is you're learning? Or to be disengaged and feeling sorry for yourself? It's like one's always going to help you moving forward and one's going to keep you where you're at best. And so, again, I could always do a better job like explaining that foundation, but it came, yeah, like I said, I was just reading and came across it. And I think Coach Matheson deserves a lot of credit for helping it become a thing. He has a knack for making things become a thing. And so I would always say thank you
Totally.
to him because I started saying it once and he grabbed onto it and made sure it was a thing and he's embodied it. And again, it's like for us, it's more of a joke
Mm-hmm.
than this like corny annoyance, if that makes sense. But the general day-to-day life then, like having this even as a joke just kind of moves everybody this way a little bit more to a positive get to can do attitude, which is just better to be around.
Remember days you would walk into the office early in the morning, you wouldn't say anything. Like you wouldn't say anything. You just walk right past so that way the River Falls staff structure is set up. There's two bigger offices, and when you walk in, Coach Walker's office is right when you first go in, and then when you turn the corner, the offensive office is all in there with it's like a horseshoe essentially, and then you keep going. The defensive office is further down the way. And I remember the first time I heard it, you just walked in, and you're just like get to get to get to get to. I had my headphones on. I was like, what? I was like, what are you talking about? Nothing, just silence, nothing else. And then like 2 hours later, same thing. Like nothing else, just get to, get to, get to. He knows
It
what he's doing.
same thing, like it was like a little throwaway statement when I first heard him say that, but it helps me tremendously. You hear a player say something and at least me, my initial reaction's like, excuse me. But now the
You gonna
same
make fun
thing,
of that? You gonna make fun of that, son? Like
right?
that's where you think right away.
Right? You get a little defensive. That's
Yeah.
natural. But again, for me, then, like, just like the get to, or in this case with walk, like, you got him. It happened just the other day where I heard one of the guys say something that clearly was something I say all the
Yeah.
time. And I was able to just smile and be like, got him.
Oh my gosh. Just things like palm up. How do you interpret palm up?
Palm up to me, he always starts explaining it by there's two types of people, right? There's people that bring energy to a situation, and there's people that take it. And at times, this is one throughout my years here with him that I think people miss the mark on sometimes. It's absolutely genius because it encapsulates everything. And so the way I think about it is when you walk into a room, do people feel better Or are people like, oh boy, you
Mm.
know, it can be anything. If you're working out with someone and you're spotting them, you're gonna bring some energy to the situation that helps them fight that extra inch, or you're gonna say something that like is off-putting and takes
Mm.
away from them. You know, if something goes wrong, are you gonna have a reaction that takes more energy from the situation, or are you gonna, lock in and say, all right, let's go. What do we get to do here? There's so many different applications to it, but to me, the general approach is people that are palm up are giving energy to those around them, whereas people that are palm down are taking it.
Yeah.
And that's his thing. And I think it's super cool because it's his thing, you know?
I think one of the things that was powerful is watching you take all the players out on the field and doing pliability with them. What's your streak up to now on pliability?
This is my 157th week.
My goodness. Tell me how that started. Tell me why it's more than just stretching because I do it as well, but why is it become something that you do every day and then ultimately why is it something that you have the players do here and there?
So, for those that don't know, yes, Pliability is an app on your phone, and it is a mobility app where they put out weekly programs um, that, again, I think of it just like straight strength training, where if you have a strength coach put together a plan for you, there's purpose behind it, it's going to help you improve. And this is the same thing. And that applies then to my journey with it. It started back when I was summer year of my sophomore year playing, and I was hopping under the squat rack, and something started to bother me, so I went into the trainers, and they did their trainer thing, and she asked me a question. She's like, what are you doing for warm-ups and cool downs? And I looked at her like a puppy dog. I was like, er? What? You don't know what you don't know, right? And again, these were lifts I was doing on my own. We have a
Mm,
fantastic coach that would warm us up and cool us down, but I didn't even think of it like that. I was just like, well, this is the first workout.
mm,
Anyways, a teammate of mine had been using the app at the time, and so I started doing cool downs with him on occasion. However, I fast forward to after I was done playing, and as you know, I know, and we all know, football or college sport in general takes a real toll on your body. And so I started just going on YouTube and I was typing in different hips, stretches for hips, because my hips bothered me.
hmm
And I kind of just started to use it. I was like, I've done all of them. And I was just, without a plan, you're just kind of spinning your wheels in place. And so I
Yeah.
remembered this app and I was, coaching with money. The app costs money. And I was like, you know what? If you're spending money on something that benefits you, one, you better do it. Otherwise, you're wasting the money. And two, it's better than spending money on things that don't benefit you. So I was like, bet, got this subscription. And it was the same kind of thing. Anytime you start something new, I'd like it to working out. You do it today and then you skip tomorrow. And so what I did was I did 75 hard, just, 2 workouts a day, stick to a diet, no drinking, read 10 pages if you're not familiar. But I replaced that second exercise. I said, I want to make this something I do every day because it aligns with my physical goals. And so I did 75 days in a row. I didn't miss a single day. And the whole purpose that I took away from an exercise like 75 hard is that if you, with no excuse, do something consistently, it'll stick with you. It'll become a habit and it will become something that's harder to not do than to do. And so that was really cool for me to just experience and learn as, a theory, how to make something a habit. And in my case, it was just stretching, right? But it aligned with my goals. It helps me lift better, which is exciting for me. And then I started to reflect all the way back on my own experience when I was like, hey, I didn't know when I was left to myself that I was supposed to be doing these things. And so I was actually, I think insecure is a good word about opening up to our players now as a coach, because I was worried about their judgment. I was worried what they'd say. And we went to do it, and every single person loved it. They asked to do it again. And so it started out as a thing I did with, I opened it up to the room. I had 3 or 4 of our guys join me. And then they told their friend or, somebody else on the team. And then by this fall camp of this previous season we had the entire defense out doing it during fall camp. And the offensive guys would get done with their walkthroughs and jump in to join us. And again, my feelings, I would say, are silly, because it's extremely productive and important for our guys to be mobile, to be pliable, to be able to move and bend and recover better and faster and stronger. And it's another tool that we can use now to help our players really get to where they want to be.
It's a form of meditation as well.
Right.
And it's so good for the mind. The times that I've done it, I've always felt better after doing it. And that's kind of been my thing with running now. During the season this past year, I was in rough shape. Like I was heavier than I'd been, but definitely body fat was was a big part of that. And one day I just went out to the track and I ran a mile and I was gassed afterwards. But I felt good. But then I did it a second day, and then I did it a third day, and then I did it a fourth day. And I've been running now for about 6 months, and it's totally changed my life.
I think one thing from it that any coach would be blown away by is that for 23 minutes, not one person on our entire defense said a word.
Hmm.
To get 18 to 22-year-olds for 23 minutes to sit still and not say a word, there has to be something to it, right?
There's so much that we're focused on the future. We're focused on the past. We're focused on, like you said during fall camp, what's the next workout going to be? I got to get up at this time, or man, I didn't really practice that well. Man, when you're doing those routines, you have no choice but to be completely present in the moment. And again, like you said, those 18 to 22-year-olds struggle getting them to be present. And a
Yeah,
lot of
we
them
all do. It's hard.
it is. I do as well. And it's hard. You're constantly comparing. You're constantly thinking about your performance. And I think anything that you can do to be present and not be concerned with what's going on the outside world, what's going on, anything other than where your feet are, I think is an important thing to have in your life, no matter what that is.
I agree. And again, doing this with athletes, it's important because optimal performance comes in a moment where you are entirely engaged with that moment. If you are worried about the play before, it'll impact the play that's about to happen. You've heard coaches say it for years. Everybody says it a little differently, but also everybody says it exactly the same. Next play, next play. Every coach that's ever said that's right. And what they're saying is to be mindful. And the tough part is that it's extremely hard. To be mindful, at least for me, it would be easier for me to go increase my bench max onto like 25 pounds than it would be to sit for 10 minutes and be mindful, something like that. And because of that, You get to teach how to do it. You can't just tell somebody next play and expect them to do it. You have to help them learn how to refocus on the moment.
And I think that's what the program at River Falls has done over the course of at least the time that I've been associated with or been around it is this. It feels like everything that's done is done to try to do that at times, whether it's been done on purpose or whether it's not. It's happening the way that the offense operates. You don't have time to think about, what happened the last play.
Yeah, you're
Like
getting the
the only
signal
one that's
before the
thinking during those plays is Coach Matheson, and heck, he's even like, oh shit, like okay, let's.
he's pretty damn engaged in the moment too when he's calling those
Totally,
plays.
totally. Like being someone that's been up in that press box with him, like there is no time for, damn it. There's no time for good job. There's no time for I wish I wouldn't have called that play. Like, there's no like I don't think there's been one time unless it's ended a possession or and
Yes, only once the Steels are on the field.
yeah, yeah. Once punt safe is out there, then there's time for reflection.
We were talking about it at lunch yesterday. I was telling him that getting to sit by him for a game will be one of the most memorable life experiences for that season. Um, it just is. It's special. It's passion. It's excitement. It's hilarious.
That
It's
is true.
serious.
Yeah.
It's everything. Yeah, we were literally talking about it at lunch just this week about how it's one of the most exciting life experiences anyone could have is being by Coach Matheson for a game.
Now that you say that, it's so true. Like I'm so fortunate to have been like an inch away from him, maybe even less. You go to Stevens Point, you're much closer than that. That level of focus and that level of attention to detail when you don't have a lot of time to pay attention to details at times. I mean, you're so right. You hit the nail on the head. It should be studied and it should be put out there everywhere for everybody to see. But let's
Nope.
talk about a little bit with your relationship with Coach Matheson. I feel like over the course of the 2 years that I was around him, I feel like I talk like him sometimes, and I feel like my mannerisms at times are like him. And I told him this once, and he said, "It's really bad for your future, then." But but I think that sometimes programs have a problem with the chemistry between offenses and defenses. Like they butt heads are like, oh well, why didn't you score this many points? Or oh, why did you let them score this many points? I feel like the defense and offensive chemistry at River Falls is so special. Like it's different than anything I've been a part of because it's like we have each other's backs. And I think it totally starts at the top with the relationship between the offensive coaches and the defensive coaches.
I would agree. We've been fortunate. And if you go back to earlier in the episode where we were talking about how I see my role as supporting WIS and how that goes back to competition and ultimately desire to win, I would have to say that for us as a program, it's the same thing. And again, it starts with Coach Walker, where he has this rule where there's no fighting allowed, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
again one specific that kind of overarches that team philosophy where there are no divides because of offense or defensive labels. We all have the same mission. And so anytime that you are, just throwing that shade recklessly for no reason, it's just detracting from everybody's ultimate goal. And now there's tough conversations that need to be had, right? Productive ones, but ultimately we all have the same goal again. And our offense has an identity, our defense has an identity, and they both promote the team's identity. And I think that's really important. And if you're not working collaboratively, you're just taking away from the team's ability to succeed.
As far as Coach Wiss, I don't think I've ever heard a defensive coordinator on game day say, fuck it, go for it. You're right there against Platteville. Like, I think we were on our own 45, and we're talking about it. We're like, this is a little uncomfortable. And Coach Wiss flips over, to the offensive side. He's like, what are you guys talking about up there? Just go. Just go for it. And I feel like sometimes you have to like convince defensive coordinators to like allow you to go for it on your own 45. But Wiss, like, he just has so much belief in the offense, what is being done on the offensive side of the ball, that he's like the offense's own biggest advocate. And it's empowering. It really is.
And I think, well, I know that whatever a leader's approach is will be the one adopted by the players. And so
Mm-hmm.
our players see that. And again, it's the lens in which you see things. Him getting up there and being himself and with as much enthusiasm as he says it with, our players are going to be like, all right, bet. Even if the offense doesn't pick up this first down, oh, what? We get to go play now?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And your back's a little bit more up against the wall. What's that going to do? Well, for us, it's going to make you dig in just a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
And it's fun. Again, it's fun. It's fun to be a little bit different, to do things a little bit outside of the box. It makes things more fun. It allows for some creativity and for some individuality. And so again, like I'm just really, it's cool to be a part of.
Mm-hmm. How do you think one of the things I remember um, about being on staff with you is I feel like the offensive guys, including myself, including Coach Madison, would go to you a lot about a specific concept that we're working, and whether it's hey, this week we're playing a defense that's similar to us, or I learned one thing that I really studied a lot was like cover seven, red zone, goal line zone. And because we saw it a lot that previous year, and I really wanted to do a study on it. And I learned so much from you specifically about how to attack that coverage or how to attack that scheme. And I think you look at things very uniquely because you don't look at it like, oh, it's too high. We're going to work the middle of the field. It's it's just so much different than that. It's more of a here's where this guy is at this given moment. And it's not rules based, and it's almost kind of confusing in my own head, but it's more looking, and it's funny because it's like throw it where they ain't is like kind of like the how I feel like you approach things. But how do you feel like coaching defense and understanding defense could translate to coaching offense, I guess, is my overall question. But where does like when you're thinking about attacking defenses, what is where does your mind go?
So for your first point, how we work together, right? I recently heard this said, I think it was Rick Pitino. He said, if it's not broke, break it. And it's very close to my philosophy of if you build something, you better figure out how to fundamentally dismantle it. And that's what I want to do to myself because that's what everyone else is trying to do to us as a team. And
Yeah.
so, you know, that's what I want. I want to break what we build over and over and over so we understand our defense, right? It's the same idea as working out. What do? You break down your muscles so they build back stronger. I want to break what we do so it can build back stronger. And again, we're super fortunate to just have the top offense in the country to go and break what we do. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, it was always hilarious because, these conversations aren't scheduled. It's lunch.
Yeah.
It's 7 minutes before I'm heading out the door. It's, whatever it might be. But then spring ball rolls around and it's day 3 of spring ball and we're getting into it and I'm watching and I just watched something just go wide ass open down to that. And I'm like, what was that? And so I wait for the next 6 play rotation where I get to see it again. And I'm like, oh, that was that. That's what we talked about on February 17th. And, it's a blast because then we get to look at it as a group and go, this is what we're going to do to fix it. And again, so fortunate to have players that love this stuff because then it might not come up for a year or 2 years. But we've had moments, I think of the 11 personnel, tray, running back jump, quarterback run game. Right?
Mm-hmm.
When you jump
A
the
staple
back,
of the Top Gun offense.
right, when you jump that back, you are in immediate conflict as a defense because you have 2 players that you need to be responsible for vertical, and you have 2 players, at least in our structure, to accomplish this. But you also need an edge player and a gap fitter. And that edge is getting wider and wider with every step that back takes. And again, we practice it all spring. We floundered through different potential options, but later that fall, week 7, the third quarter, an offense pulled out 11 personnel, tray right, jump, quarterback run, and our guys knew 6 months later exactly how we adjust, what their gap is, who they're responsible to cap, and they stopped 2 yards. And that's when it's like, that's why we did that.
It's all that work and all those it's almost like those silly little conversations that you have with your own self and with your team. And then the highlight of that is that little 2-yard gain on 3rd and 3. It's like
And you're so excited and everyone else is like, what? Dude, you're being weird. I'm like, no,
yeah.
give me my moment.
All of that work for that those little moments of joy that you don't even really think about.
One thing I've been thinking a lot about is a profession like ours where it is so widely known and enjoyed, right? So think about all the people that watch and play football and the dichotomy of knowledge between what we do as coaches and everybody else, right? So like when you watch football with a friend, a girlfriend, a parent, you might turn your head if you hear them go, oh, that was zone coverage. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or if your girlfriend's like 3 down linemen,
Yeah.
And then it just goes so much deeper in thinking about how many people. And so to illustrate what I'm trying to communicate, you wouldn't have somebody at lunch go, did you see what Dale did in accounting? Can you believe he rounded to the 3rd decimal? You know what I mean? There's just not this entertainment around it, which again, it's so exciting about what we do. But then I don't know a thing about accounting, but I'm not sitting down at lunch shooting the shit about it.
Yeah.
And I've just been thinking about that. It's been interesting.
Thing I didn't understand when I first came up to Wisconsin is the WIAC. Unless you've been in it, you don't understand how difficult it really is, because every week is a war, and it's so true. And I remember hearing Coach Walker talk about it on my visit, and I was like, "Oh, big deal. We play Wartburg. I've been there. It's so different." How do you interpret coaching in the WIAC, and what do you think makes it so challenging?
Well, I would imagine there is fundamental reasons. And then those fundamental reasons led to this exponential growth of skill. And so there's some objective reasons, right? We have the Badgers in Wisconsin. They're our Division 1 program. Outside of them, it's Division 3 schools. And so there are 4 kids a year that are given the opportunity to play scholarship football. There's quite a bit more than 4 kids that would like to continue playing.
Yeah.
And so I think that is the main foundation that was laid for our conference, where there's all over the country, but in Wisconsin, especially, there's so much talent. And you go to the Badgers, if you're one of the 4 best, really, linemen or backers, edge rushers in the state, or you go to one of the YX schools. And, as time has went on and there's more modes of communication and different ways for kids to get themselves out there, different schools and states have come in, and that's natural. But ultimately, there's so much talent and so little opportunity, especially scholarship, that it really allows our league to operate like a scholarship league
Mm-hmm.
and from a talent level. And so naturally, then what happens is this talent attracts talent, whether it's players or coaches. And so we, I believe, have some of the best and most exciting coaches in this league across the teams. And again, you're playing great teams with great coaches, you better bring it. Well, what happens when iron runs into iron? You're going to get better. Even if you're not winning the battle, like, you're in a war year in and year out with recruiting, staying ahead of the curve schematically. And it's exciting. It's an opportunity, and it's one that I think is this D3 community grows more and more and more, and people are learning, and it will only help our league continue to grow.
What do you think makes River Falls and, UWRF specifically such a special place to be?
Yeah, the people, that's always my first answer. I think what plays into that is the location. And
Yeah.
if we go way back where we were talking about diversity, right? If you go east of here 40 minutes, you're in the middle of a field. It's farm, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's not much going on in that direction. If you go 40 minutes west, you're in the heart of Minneapolis, St. Paul. A completely different experience, right? We have the opportunity within that radius to bring in so many different people. And what happens again, then you have different experiences, different perspectives. And we're fortunate enough, again, to have leadership that appreciates and values that. And so when both things are true, the people, I believe, then are what make it so special here. On top of it, then there's just some things that are true. We have the best facilities at our level in the country. It is a pleasure to get to wake up and work out here and work here every day. It's the nicest gym in the state. It's the nicest building in the state for our athletes. It's the biggest locker room in the, like, we have so many great people and resources for our players. And I think going back to the opportunities that Mike and Aaron and Shuey had going for them right now, it's like what they do, they work their ass off, but they took advantage of everything we have here for them, and they ran with it. They ran all the way to NFL Pro Days, like.
Yeah.
I always say on our recruiting visits that we have nice things, and you'll find nice things on all your visits. You gotta envision a day-to-day experience, because when it's, again, February 17th, my arbitrary day that I just use. But when it's February 17th and it's -27, you better enjoy your life. You better enjoy the people, right? And so ultimately, that's why I started with the people here. I do know that that's what makes it so special.
You talk about recruiting. Everybody has their own thing when it comes to recruiting. You ultimately you develop a relationship with not only the school, but you develop a relationship with a specific coach. And what kind of approach do you take when it comes to recruiting?
You know, I talked about it a bit where I really seek to find guys that love the game of football. Ultimately, me and you both know this. It seems that once we get a guy here, they're either going to go, that's it, and they reach out to Coach Walker within the week and they're committed,
Mm-hmm.
or it's not it for them. And then at our level, it's a lot different without scholarship. And so we really work then to promote our place to as many people as possible. Again, because of what I said, guys get here, they fall in love with it. They're blown away with our facilities. They get to peek at the caliber of play. And if we're just able to get guys here, we feel that we have good enough thing to offer that we'll get really good football players.
Mm. Is there any concepts? Is there any schemes? Is there anything that you've seen lately that you have been obsessing over or are trying to learn more about or trying to get your players to learn more about? Is there anything out there right now that's maybe trendy that you're thinking about?
Um, you might be disappointed with my answer, but because of the life cycle I'm at with experience, I've got to go really, really back to square one. And so I've been obsessing over quarters coverage.
Tell me about what you've been studying. Tell me about what you've been learning.
So, like anything, it, I guess in defensive football, there are 5 damn coverages a team can run, right? But it's always attention and beauty in the details. And so we've been really working right now to just really understand wholeheartedly what is quarters, what is quarter, quarter half as a group. Where do I fit in? And we've been using the classic geometry to learn and teach. Quarters creates a box. Palms creates a triangle. Where do I fit? What piece of this shape am I? And what technique does that mean I have? And how do my rules apply to it? And I've really been having a great time going back and really getting to dive into the teaching and the understanding of it. And then it's really important to do that because there are so many little switches that you can pull. But it's so important to have a base fundamental understanding first before you hop into those. And when you do that, then at least so far in my experience, you start at the starting line and then you'll naturally just find your own path. And to me, that is when a coach says, we need to put our players in the best position to succeed. That to me is how you do it. Like, hey, this is where we're going to start. Let's see where this journey takes us. And so with the group we had, if we can jump into quarters, because I love where we left off. We again had 2 phenomenal corners. Guys that could just line up and win their one-on-ones. And so we got to do a bunch of fun things inside of that, right? We essentially took our quarters and squished it to the middle. And now we had a bunch of fun ways to bracket with the safeties and the overhangs and the backers because we had such exciting players that were willing to go out there and win their matchups. And so, you know, it's been fun to kind of see those guys grow and have a new, you know, generation, so to speak, and exciting to see where we take it this time.
I never thought I would hear course coverage be described like poetry. Like that's what I feel like I just heard is like a stanza or something like that. I have a new segment, and it's specific to you. I was going to call it just a word association game,
Oh
but
God,
we're going to call it a wood association game. And
might
great
get
play
into
on
trouble. Also, does our
good.
new segment have an introductory noise, like a boom, boom, boom?
I think that you just made it. I
Beef
think
that up a little.
that's probably what I'll use is that right
Beef it
there.
up, pan it out, add a little bass to it,
Add a little like saturation to everything going on here.
saturate the noise.
I'll saturate it a ton.
The
Okay.
saturation of noise for me is reverb, so just a bunch of
Yeah,
reverb on
maybe
there.
just an over the top intro for this
Yeah,
is going to be needed.
make it. Yeah,
So hopefully that just happened. Hopefully we just did that. But essentially, simple word association game. Okay. And all I want to do is I'm going to say, either a word or a name, place, whatever, and just first word that comes into your brain. Okay. Okay. Are you
I
ready?
might get canceled. Okay, let's go.
That would be the goal. That's the goal of this, of course. Okay. Matt Walker.
Special,
That's yeah. Jake Wissing.
passionate,
Joe Matheson.
fast.
Dylan Brown.
You know,
Uh,
I think Dylan's one of the kindest people I know. He's awesome. So kind. Yeah.
kind.
Yeah.
Lacrosse.
It's a pretty place.
It's a fun place. I've been there. I mean, it's a good time.
I love outside. I like hiking. It presents
Yeah.
opportunities for that.
Michael Brown. The brothers.
Uh Little known fact, they're not actually brothers.
I was totally thrown off. I will say that.
Yeah, they look alike, they play alike, they act alike, so it could be hard with also having the same last name.
Well, one of your specific DBs when I first came on my visit. His name was Dom, and I remember walking in the locker room, and something about like the two corners came up, and he's like, "Oh, the Browns," and I was like, "Oh, are they brothers?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, yeah they are." And I was like, "Oh, cool, like that's cool, brothers playing together, like whatever." And you find out in a hurry why they're not, and so shout out Dom, but yeah, not brothers, but Michael Brown,
Michael's a dog.
dog.
Yeah.
He's a dog. Pliability.
Hmm. Needed.
Needed. Okay. Football.
Passion. Love.
Platteville.
Orange.
Yeah, that's a good one. Whitewater.
Cannon.
Yeah, that fucking cannon, I will say. Um, didn't hear it too much, but recruiting.
Consistency.
Graphics.
Art.
Art. that's such a good one. Borgerding.
I appreciate Aaron.
Appreciation. Okay. Andrew Schumacher.
Says, can I use the same word? I
Yeah,
really appreciate all of them. Um, God, Chewy's so kind. He's one of the
so
nicest humans
kind.
I've
He was my
ever
big
met.
brother.
I was talking about yesterday how easy it would be for a guy like Chewy to just be such a douche.
Oh,
Like,
totally. Yeah, that's
just
a
like,
great point. It could be. He's
I
not
don't
though.
know,
He's
just
so
like,
nice.
he's the nicest person. Yeah, he's awesome.
He's my yeah, as my big brother, who is 2 years, three, sorry, maybe like 4 years younger than me. Best big brother I could have ever asked for. Okay,
Yes, we do a big brother
talk
system
about it. Let's
on
talk
the
about it.
team.
This is as much as it's a podcast about wood. Talk about the Big Brother program, the Big Brother Little Brother program.
Again, there's so many special things, right? It's when you ask me about what makes Walk special, it's like your mind's flooded. It's like, well, he does this and this and this, and that was funny. It's hard to just pinpoint one thing. We do the Big Brother program. It's his baby, where every first year player is assigned a big brother, and that's what it is. They're there to act as your big brother, to take you to textbook services, to show you where class is, to give you a ride to a team dinner, and to help bridge that gap that is college.
I love it. Okay, let's do C4.
Oh, I'm addicted to these. They're so good. If you ever get a sponsorship opportunity from them, uh, I'll apply to work just
What do
because
you
of that.
think? What do you think are the most popular energy drinks amongst your coaching staff? Or
Um,
maybe you don't have to even think about it. Maybe, what do you think? Like, what are they? Because the what do you two parter?
Rain.
Also, on average, how many milligrams of caffeine are consumed in on the staff per day?
I think we all do an appropriate job of limiting our caffeine intake relative relative to the average college football coaching staff.
Okay,
I think Rain would be 1A. Predominantly would be Coach Matheson and Coach Kaiser. Coach
okay.
Walker's weird. I think he just buys whatever's most
I,
affordable. So
I
sometimes he'll have like a kickstart.
I've seen him pull up with some strange energy, and not only one, he
Nas,
pulls up with like 15 of them.
I
Nos, he's a
chose,
big Nos guy. He is a
yeah,
big Nos guy.
it's not my job to monitor his caffeine intake. He's an adult.
Does anybody have that job? Like, has PK taken it on his or Coach Kaiser? Has he taken it upon himself to track?
No, because I think PK would be um probably number 2 on the list
Okay,
of consumption. So it's kind
okay.
of like
Let's do that. Let's do that. Actually, let's go by
Mount
coach,
Rushmore of caffeine consumption.
or maybe we just go coach by coach. Like,
Yeah, just
who's consuming
call
the
them
most? Like,
out.
yeah, starting at number one, who consumes the most? I think I know the answer to this, but
Gosh, I would imagine it's walk.
it's got to be right because the thing about Walks though is he starts so much earlier than everybody else. It feels like, or he goes later than everybody
Yeah.
else when it comes to. I've seen that guy crack a rain at 11 p.m.
No comment on that. There's worse things than rains, right?
I've seen PK crack a 24-ounce Red Bull at like midnight.
Oh God. Everything's going okay here. We're fine.
Okay,
Yeah, no, that would be the start of my order. Me and Joe, Coach Matheson battling it out for third place.
okay,
And one of
behind
the
PK.
most Yeah, and one of the most impressive feats I've ever witnessed is that Coach Wissing does not drink caffeine.
You
This man had a
that's
child. that does not sleep. Coach Wiss has not slept since summer of 2024, and once a month he'll put a squirt of Mio in his water.
Oh my gosh. That is
I don't know how it's impressive.
insane. That
Yeah.
is absolutely insane.
Yep.
For how much energy he has too. I mean, as far as energy meter, he might be up there towards the top too.
Well, the guys voted him as the second biggest crash out at practice this year. They started doing top 5 lists on the whiteboard in the locker room. They were so funny, but don't ask me any more about them.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get back into the Wood Association game. Okay, next I have double flex.
Personnel.
Mm. Mm.
I've actually spent some
Mm.
time learning about it, and my appreciation's grown for it. My understanding was it was Tom Landry's answer to Vince Lombardi's running attack. I believe it was 40s, 50s.
Okay.
If I'm way wrong, what happens is people will really be excited to tell you, God, that guy's an idiot and he's wrong. Engagement farming, right? But
That's exactly what we're doing.
I have spent more time, but it is one of those defenses where it falls in line with Nick Saban's thing of cover one, rat in the hole is the best defense if you're better. And it's the same thing. Like when I was playing in it, we had an NFL nose, Division One Mike, and a couple all conference guys in the secondary. And we were a problem, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's what can we do as coaches to put our guys in the best position to succeed? And so, you know, you got to be flexible at times. No pun intended.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, if we can get this thing sponsored by Pliability, that'd be great. Ben Bizey.
Oh, again, just a guy that worked. You can give him all the great adjectives you want, but he had such a special path, and he just showed up and worked every day.
Mesh.
No, duh. They're running mesh. Oh, it's 3rd and 3. Let me guess. You're going to condense your splits and run mesh. Duh.
What's your favorite way to stop mesh?
Keep them at 3rd and 10.
Nice. And tackle. Tackle's a good one.
Great ball key.
Wyack.
Elite.
Caleb Laha.
Fierce. He is my favorite kind of competitor.
Isn't he, though?
Yes.
Gosh, this picture right here, right there, is of us after the Platteville game.
Gotcha.
That's what that is. Yeah.
It has not focused yet. You could take 10 people with different personalities but equal skill sets physically to Caleb, and they would not be as problematic as he is because of how fierce of a competitor he is. He's the guy that, while he can lead during a game, you can say something to him and your words will go right through his being because he is so laser focused on accomplishing what he is asked to accomplish. And I absolutely believe that the way he approaches competition is the most optimal way to succeed as a competitor.
I think that is a perfect description of him, and I think a good cap on the Wood Association game. That was fun. That was good. Yes. I like that. Scheme it up. It's essentially whiteboard chess.
Let's do scheme it up.
So, how we'll do this, you get to pick offense or defense or situation.
I'll pick the situation.
You pick the situation. I'll pick defense because I want to see because I think there would be a lot more growth than the other option.
No.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Okay.
I'm on offense. You're on
You're on
defense.
offense.
4th and 4 from the 12. I'm down 8.
Down 8.
I got my play. I don't care what you do.
Okay, this is fine then. Okay, so from the 12.
Now, again, I don't have an offensive language, so I'm going to fumble through
That's totally fine.
the
I don't.
communication
I'm going to
of
be
this.
so ungap sound, it's going to be ridiculous.
Yeah, gaps. Those are Coach Wissing's job, right?
Okay, can I get your formation at least?
I am starting in trips, bunch, nasty, fib. It's type trips, bunch, fib with the solo receiver to the field in a nasty split.
Nasty split. Goodness sakes. Okay. I believe I'm ready.
All right, how would you like to do this?
I'm going to. Apparently, I have a. Nope, I have 12 on the field.
The Polish defense.
Okay, so.
Man, talk about growth opportunity for you, right?
You're right. I knew that. I didn't really realize. Gosh, I drew this up like an idiot, but.
Yeah.
Yup. And then I'm totally crushing this. And then I'm going to press the point with my will. Yup. And I'm going to use my weak safety as the C gap fitter.
Where do you want them aligned?
I'd say at around 7 to 8. And Mike can be where he's supposed to.
To the pass strength?
Yes. Yeah. We can bump everybody. And then you can bring the Sam in. But he's still C gap fitter. Okay. Corner's outside Lev. Yep. And we're gonna play quarters over there with 1 and 3. And I'm gonna say the will is just gonna be man.
Gosh, that's a feisty idea.
Yeah. I'm just gonna have him beat the hell out of number 2.
Okay.
There you go. There's my look.
We are going to. Are you ready?
I'm so pumped. Okay, go ahead.
We are going to jet number 3. We're going to get a vertical true post.
Oh, I'm so toast. Well,
we are going to run him vertical and bend to the front pylon. Scissors idea. Front pylon, goal post. And then over here we're getting a wheel stop with a dig underneath.
5-6 man pro?
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm so screwed.
And just so we know.
Oh, there you go. Nice.
Drew up here beforehand.
There we go.
I'm going for the win.
Yeah, you've clearly gone for the win.
We can make a poll. We could leave it up to the listeners.
We could, sure can. I'm so screwed, but depending on the reaction, I'm not well versed in defensive terminology or technique to what I would then do to this, but there you go. So this was fun. I want to run that.
It's my favorite high red zone play. That's not a real play. It's just.
That's a play. You can make it. Okay. Well, Coach Wood, I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Yes,
this was a lot of fun.
Seth.
Oh, of course. I hope that, any young coach out there that's hopefully listening can learn something from you. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave the people with before we get out of here?
Our 3 pillars as a cornerback and secondary room are take care of yourself, work hard, and be nice. So that's what I'd like to leave everyone with.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to the Left Hash Call. We will see you next time. Peace.